Hello, I'm Mrs. Jansen. Let's draw the sun and moon together as one. First, let's start with vocabulary. In art, the word object refers to a thing, and the word subject refers to a person or creature. Our first vocabulary word, positive space, means the object or subject in a work of art. Negative space is the area around, between, above, below, and within the object or subject. Let's look at the image on the left. Notice the positive space is the key. Look closely at the negative space, and you'll see a cityscape. Now let's look at the chairs on the right. I'd like you to notice the negative spaces. And if you draw just the negative space shapes within the back of a chair and underneath the chair, you'll only have to add a few lines and you'll have the entire chair drawn. It's especially helpful to have the back legs and the front legs in the right place and create the illusion of depth. Remember, we all see art differently. The positive and negative space can be different depending on how you see things. So let's talk about what you notice first. If the first thing you notice are the profiles of two people facing each other, then that's the positive space for you. The black shapes are the people. The white empty space in between the people is the negative space. But if the very first thing you saw was the white object in the center, that white object is the positive space for you, and the black empty space on both sides of the white object is the negative space. Remember, there's no right or wrong. We all see art differently. Now let's talk about color. Warm colors might remind you of a sunset, autumn leaves, red apples, or oranges. Those are the yellows, the oranges, and the red. The cool colors might remind you of the northern lights, blue water, green grass, or purple flowers. Those are the blues, the greens, and the purples. Noses can be different shapes and sizes, and as you create your sun and moon together as one, you'll be deciding what nose you'd like to use. This nose will be shared with the moon and the sun. You can also decide which eyes you'd like to draw. Eyes can be drawn in many different ways and express different emotions. Mouths also show emotion, and they can be drawn open or closed. You can use one mouth that is shared by the sun or moon, or you can use two different mouths that join in the center. So let's get started. You'll need a piece of paper and something round to trace, a small bowl or a plate. Make sure you'll have room to add the background around the sun and the moon after you trace the circle. And if you're using a household object, make sure you have your family's permission. You'll also need a pencil and crayons. You'll see this screen change so that we can draw together. So the first thing I want you to do is decide what direction you would like your paper to be in. You can draw in landscape style, which means your paper is horizontal, and that's what this example is starting out as. And that means that you would have more room for the sun rays. Or you can position your paper in portrait style, and there's no right or wrong. So remember the plate or the bowl, it will slide around if you don't press down firmly. So make sure whatever direction your paper's in, you have it centered, and try not to pick up your pencil until you're all the way around. So one of the most important lines that you're going to draw today is that center line that both the moon and the sun share. So we're going to be thinking about the moon, the crescent shape, as we draw. So start with a curved line. And then think about the nose that you'd like to draw. You're going to see me draw just one idea, but you can go back and select the nose that you'd like to draw. So now that we've got this curved line drawn, and at any time you can go back and select the different noses that you'd like to add or the eyes. So as I'm drawing today, I'd like you to think of this as an idea starter. Yours does not have to look exactly the same. So the next thing I'm going to decide on is what I'd like the eye to look like. First, I'm going to add the eyebrow. And I'm thinking about diagonal lines in the direction that an eyebrow would grow. And when you add the eyes, they don't have to be exactly the same. They could be different on the sun than they are the moon. So I'm going to start the eye with just a curved line like a rainbow and then a curve like a smile. And this is just a sketch, so anytime as you're drawing, if you want to change something, you can. It's called refining as we're drawing. And you'll see me do that quite a bit as I draw. So the iris, the colored part of the eye, has a lot of texture. So you can see I darkened the center of the pupil, the darkest part, and then I started the texture that went out from the pupil, and then I went back to the edges and I added texture, small lines that go toward the center. So as you draw the lower eyelashes, if you'd like to, they are curved, and notice how they change direction when you get underneath the center of that pupil, that dark center of the eye. And when you're adding eyelashes, you don't have to add them all the way across at the top. And now you can decide what kind of mouth you'd like. I'm going to wait and add the eye on the moon later. And the mouth I draw, I'm deciding to share. So the mouth is always shared, but I'm going to have the same type of mouth on both sides. And I've decided I'd like the moon to look like it's sleeping. And I'm going to add an eyebrow. I know you've got great ideas, so you're adding your own ideas and details. So now I'm going to add the sun rays. You can add the sun rays any way that you'd like. So now that we're finished drawing this, you can think about compare and contrast. How are the sun and moon the same? How are daytime and nighttime the same? And now you might want to think about how are night and day different? So when it comes to the background, you want to think about daytime, and you do not have to use a warm color in the background behind the sun. Maybe you want to think of a blue sky. You could think of sunset and add warm colors for the background. And then for the moon, you definitely want to be thinking of cool colors for the moon and the night sky. So here's when you use your own ideas, and I'm going to show you just another example. So this is an example that was drawn portrait style, and you can use a blending technique with the crayon. Here you can see orange, red have been blended on the eyelid. And then also the yellow, orange, and red have been blended on the sun rays. You use the sun rays to divide the background, the two skies for night and day. And then before you color the background, especially at the night sky. Make sure that you've colored the stars in, and then you do not have to use black for the night sky. That could be a beautiful blend. It could be purple and blue blended, as long as it looks different than your daytime sky. And you want to use a light to medium pressure when you color so that you can use a heavier pressure to add different details. Maybe you'd like to outline the stars, add spirals, or more textures, little circles or ovals to represent different stars. I hope you've enjoyed drawing the sun and moon together as one and using your own ideas.